It was a Saturday morning, the kind where the sun beams in through the blinds and makes you feel like you've got your life together just because you woke up early and made coffee. Mia had already left the house, saying she was going to some antique market with her friend Caroline. I didn't ask questions. She'd started doing more things without me lately, and I chalked it up to mid-30s restlessness, something people go through when the routines start weighing heavier than the excitement. I had the house to myself, a rare luxury, and I figured I'd use the quiet time to finally clean out the hallway closet, the one that had turned into a dumping ground for all the junk we promised to sort one day. Halfway through pulling out tangled winter scarves and mismatched gloves, I found a box I didn't recognize. It was buried under an old yoga mat and a stack of magazines from 2018, the kind of spot no one would ever check unless they were looking for something else entirely. The box wasn't labeled, and it was taped shut, but not in a way that screamed secrecy, just a careless single strip holding down the top flaps. I didn't even hesitate. I figured it was mine. I assumed it was full of cords or some random tech crap I'd forgotten about. When I opened it, the first thing I saw was a man's leather bracelet, worn, thick, with a scratched silver clasp. Not mine. Not anything I'd seen before. Beneath that was a stack of photographs, real printed ones, glossy and neatly trimmed like someone actually went to the trouble of uploading and ordering them from one of those print your memories websites. I picked up the first one, and my stomach gave a small, unfamiliar twist, not quite fear, not quite anger, but something raw and creeping. It was Mia, laughing, seated at a beachside table with someone. The photo was taken candidly, like one of them had set a phone down with a timer or maybe asked someone nearby to take it. The man sitting beside her had his arm around the back of her chair, his face turned slightly toward her, lips close to her ear, and even though I'd never seen him before, there was something unmistakably intimate about it. I flipped through the stack, my hands starting to shake, not the dramatic kind of shake, but the kind that starts in your fingers when your body's trying to process something it doesn't have the language for yet. There were more pictures. Her in a hotel room mirror, holding the phone while he kissed her shoulder from behind. Her in a sundress I'd never seen before, walking through a market with his hand in hers. Her asleep on his chest, hair fanned out across a pillow that didn't belong in our house. I must have sat on the floor staring at those photos for 10 minutes before I realized I wasn't blinking. The bastard had a familiar tattoo. I couldn't place it right away, but it felt like I'd seen it before, something I couldn't shake. That detail burned into my brain more than anything else, that and the way Mia looked at him. It wasn't just sex in those photos. It was comfort. It was ease. She looked relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in a long time, like she'd exhaled something she'd been holding in every time she was with me. I didn't even realize I was gripping the edge of the box until my knuckles started aching. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just sat there with the pictures laid out across the floor, the evidence of my entire life turning into a fucking punchline. When Mia came home a few hours later, I was back on the couch pretending to watch a football game I couldn't care less about. She walked in like nothing had changed, dropped her keys in the bowl, took off her shoes, asked if I wanted anything from the bakery they stopped at. I looked at her for a second too long, and she tilted her head. "What?" she asked. I forced a smile. "Nothing. You have fun with Caroline?" She nodded, smiled that smile that used to mean something. "Yeah. She found this weird little porcelain clown she swears is going to be worth money someday. We spent more time laughing at crap than buying anything." I laughed too, a soft, fake one. Sounds like a good time. She didn't notice the box was gone. I'd already hidden it. I wanted her to keep talking, to keep lying to my face. I needed to hear the rest of her script, the one she must have rehearsed 100 times without realizing I was going to be in the audience one day, already knowing the ending. I couldn't sleep that night, not because I was tormented by emotion or some poetic version of heartbreak, but because I was thinking. I lay in bed next to Mia as she scrolled through her phone, answering group messages from her office or some recipe thread she always acted invested in when she didn't want to talk. She had no idea I had found those photos, no clue that the box she thought was buried deep enough to forget had landed straight in my hands. My eyes were open, but I didn't move. I was watching how relaxed she was. Her breathing was calm, her posture casual. She didn't even glance at me when she laughed quietly at something on her screen. There was no guilt, no worry. She was either a better liar than I ever gave her credit for, or she genuinely believed I'd never find out. I got up at 4 in the morning and went down to the garage. I didn't turn on the light. I sat in the car and stared at the dashboard while holding the bracelet from the box. I ran my thumb over the scratched metal, over and over, as if it would give me answers. There was an engraving on the inside, initials. RK. I didn't know anyone in her life with those initials. I tried to think back, scrolled through the list of names she mentioned in passing when she talked about work or people from her old gym. None of them fit. The more I thought about it, the more I was convinced this guy wasn't just a fling or some random she hooked up with on a trip. He was someone who had been around long enough to have photographs, gifts, moments. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a relationship. And I had been the idiot husband sitting on the sidelines, folding laundry and thinking we were just hitting a rough patch. The next afternoon, I told her I was going to visit my brother. That wasn't a lie, exactly. I did stop by for 20 minutes, but I wasn't there for the company. I needed a reason to be out of the house. I drove around our town for hours, parking in random lots and thinking about how I could get more. If I confronted her with the pictures, she'd either deny it or come up with some rehearsed line. I didn't want her explanation yet. I wanted the rest of the truth. I wanted the full picture, not just a bunch of stolen moments captured by someone's hand. I wanted to know when it started, where they met, how long she had been looking at me like I didn't matter while telling me she loved me. I wasn't just looking for evidence. I wanted context, the why behind the betrayal. That evening, I made a decision I wasn't proud of. I waited until she was in the shower, then I took her laptop from the bedroom desk and plugged in an old USB I had from years ago. I knew her password. She used the same one for everything, our dog's name and her birth year. She thought it was clever, and I never told her it wasn't. The first few folders were boring. Work files, receipts, photos from our vacations that I had seen 100 times. But then I found a folder buried 3 layers deep in her projects directory. It was named Inspo, which was the kind of vague title she used when she wanted to hide something in plain sight. Inside were about 20 video files, all dated from the last year. I opened one at random, and there they were, Mia and the man from the photos, in a hotel room, talking casually about how to hide their next meeting. He was shirtless. She was laughing while adjusting the strap of a dress I didn't recognize. They weren't acting like people who were doing something wrong. They were comfortable. He called her baby, she called him Rory. So there it was. RK, Rory something. I didn't recognize his face from anywhere, but judging by how familiar they were, he wasn't just a secret. He was a second life. When she got out of the shower, I was already back on the couch, pretending to watch something. She came over with wet hair and asked if I had eaten. I said I wasn't hungry. She said she might order something. I said, do what you want. And that was it. No suspicion in her eyes, no change in tone. I realized right then she had probably been living like this for so long that she didn't even worry anymore. She had her system, her story, her alibis. The only variable in her life was me, and up until that moment, I had been the easiest one to control. Later that night, she climbed into bed and turned toward me, resting her hand on my chest like she used to when we first started dating. I didn't respond. She whispered, rough week, and I just said, yeah. She nodded and kissed my shoulder, then rolled over and went asleep. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind finally quiet, not because I had found peace, but because I had made a decision. The confrontation wasn't planned. I didn't write out what I would say or rehearse it in my head. I didn't light candles or wait for a dramatic moment. It just happened because I couldn't keep pretending. That Saturday night, we were supposed to have dinner with some of her coworkers, one of those forced social gatherings where people drink cheap wine and talk about meetings like they're saving the planet. She was in the bathroom doing her makeup, and I was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding the bracelet in my hand. I looked at it for the 100th time, that scratched silver clasp, and those 2 letters staring back at me. Something about that moment made it impossible to keep going. I stood up, walked over to the bathroom door, and knocked once. She answered with her usual casual tone. Yeah. I didn't raise my voice. Can you come out here for a second? She opened the door halfway, her mascara wand still in her hand. What's wrong? I didn't say anything. I just held up the bracelet. Her face changed, not panic, not guilt, but confusion, like she didn't know which version of the truth she was supposed to grab for first. That pause told me everything. I asked, you forget where you left this? She didn't answer right away, just stared at the bracelet like it might start talking for her. Then she blinked and said, where did you find that? In the hallway closet, I said, with a bunch of printed photographs. You want to keep guessing what I've seen? Or you want to start telling the truth? Her voice dropped. I don't know what you think you found. I think I found enough. I think I've seen you half naked in hotel rooms with a guy named Rory. I think I know what kind of relationship you've been hiding. I think you've been cheating on me for over a year, and you thought you were smart enough to get away with it. You want to tell me I'm wrong? You want to say it's not what it looks like? Go ahead. She stepped back, mascara still clutched in her hand like she hadn't decided if she was going to keep applying it or throw it at me. She didn't say anything for several seconds, then set the wand on the sink and finally looked me in the eye. I didn't plan for this to happen, she said. Then what was the plan, Mia? How many hotel rooms does it take before you realize it's not just a mistake? I wasn't looking for it. It just happened. Things between us haven't been right for a long time. I laughed. I didn't mean to, but I couldn't help it. That's what you're going with? We had some quiet months, so you found someone else? You decided instead of talking to your husband, you'd sneak around behind his back and take souvenirs. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. You think I'm an idiot? You think I haven't noticed how you've been checking out of this marriage little by little while still letting me handle everything else so you could play pretend? She crossed her arms, not defensive, just trying to gather herself. He made me feel like someone again. Like someone. I repeated. You were someone. You've always been someone. But instead of working on this with me, you decided to keep one life and build another behind it. You didn't even have the decency to lie well. Do you want me to say I'm sorry? Because I don't know what that would fix. I made a mistake, and I don't know what else to tell you. I stared at her for a long time. The woman I married, the one I had built this life with, was standing in front of me like a stranger caught stealing. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She just looked tired. That was worse than yelling. Worse than tears. She looked like she had already grieved the end of us, and now she was just waiting for me to catch up. You didn't just make a mistake, I said. You made a choice. Over and over again. I found videos. I heard you talk to him like you used to talk to me. I saw how you looked at him. Don't reduce it to a mistake just because it's convenient now. She didn't flinch. I don't love him. Then why him? She shrugged, like the answer wasn't even worth her breath. Because he was there. Because he listened. Because it was easy. I nodded slowly. And I was what? Just the placeholder? No, Steve. You were home. You were safe. I didn't stop loving you. I shook my head. You don't get to say that. You don't love someone and do what you did. You don't protect someone and lie to their face every day. She looked down, then back up. What do you want from me? I want honesty. And after that, I want you out. Out, she said, as if she hadn't thought that far ahead. I want you gone. Not in a few days. Not after you think about it. You can pack your things tonight, or I will. But one of us is not waking up here tomorrow. I didn't want revenge to be some dramatic act. No yelling in public, no throwing her clothes on the lawn, no emotional posts on social media. I didn't want pity or applause. What I wanted was control. What I wanted was to leave her with the silence of knowing that I had seen everything, understood everything, and still had the power to decide how it ended. After she left that night, 3 suitcases, no words, and the kind of defeated walk that suggested she knew I wasn't bluffing, I sat in the kitchen and made a list. It wasn't a list of people to tell or things to destroy. It was names, dates, accounts, every shared detail of our life that I now planned to cut in half or rip away entirely. I had built most of it, and now I was going to dismantle her side piece by piece, not to ruin her, but to remind her that I was never just a fool with a ring. The first thing I did was move the savings account she never remembered existed. Back when I got my promotion, I opened a side account under my name only, planning to surprise her with a trip once we paid off the car. She never asked about it, not once, even though I'd mentioned needing to handle some banking stuff more than a few times. That money was mine, earned, hidden, and now perfectly positioned. I emptied it that night and put it into a new credit union account with 2-factor authentication, new password, and a new email address. No paper trail. No access. Next was the car. The title was in both our names, but I'd made the payments. She rarely drove it. I found out through my insurance portal that she had a second driver listed, Rory. I didn't get angry. I just removed him, took screenshots, and called the DMV the next morning. I told them I was filing for a title change due to marital separation. I submitted the forms and scheduled a notary. I didn't need to yell or tell her anything. That car was going to be mine legally within the week. Then came the apartment. Her apartment now. I didn't ask where she was staying when she left that night, but I assumed it was Caroline's or maybe even his. Either way, it didn't matter. I knew she wouldn't want to stay there forever. So I logged into the rental account, the one we use to pay utilities and handle maintenance requests. I disconnected the autopay, changed the contact info to only me, and called the property office. I told them we had separated and she wouldn't be living there anymore. They asked if she needed to be removed from the lease. I said yes. They said she would have to sign a release. I said that's fine, she'll sign it when she realizes I'm done making things comfortable for her. I didn't text her. I didn't respond to her email from that afternoon asking if we could talk about how to move forward. I knew what that meant. It meant she was still hoping for some version of a soft landing, where we share responsibilities, act like friends, maybe stay in touch for birthdays and pretend the last year never happened. She didn't understand yet. I wasn't angry. I was finished. That was the difference. And that kind of clarity doesn't come with yelling or crying. It comes with action. I boxed up everything that belonged to her but didn't matter: clothes, shoes, accessories, that awful vase her sister gave us. I didn't touch anything sentimental. I left the wedding album on the shelf, not because I wanted to keep it, but because I wanted her to know I hadn't needed to destroy it. That was the punishment. Knowing I saw it, knowing I left it there untouched, knowing I wasn't so broken that I needed to throw it away. I hired a courier to deliver the boxes to Caroline's address. She texted the next day saying thank you. I didn't answer. The part that surprised me most was how quiet the house felt once everything was removed. I expected to feel hollow or alone. I didn't. It just felt clean. My days returned to normal faster than I expected. I got up, made coffee, took the dog for a walk, worked from the dining table, ordered groceries, cleaned up, and went to sleep. No drama. No chaos. Just space. People say that kind of transition is supposed to feel like grief, but for me, it felt like oxygen. Like I had spent a year trying to make sense of something rotten and finally realized I didn't have to fix it. I just had to cut it out. About a week after she left, I saw Rory. I hadn't planned it, but I recognized him from the photos. He was sitting at an outdoor cafe, laughing with someone I didn't recognize. He didn't see me. I could have walked over. I could have introduced myself. I could have told him what I thought about the man who helped wreck my marriage. Instead, I kept walking. I passed him without a word, without a look. I didn't need to say anything. He had no idea what I knew, and that's what made it better. He was sitting there, comfortable, thinking he got away with something. But she would show up eventually, with her baggage, her regrets, her new stories about how things were complicated. And he would find out the same thing I had. She was good at playing a role, but eventually, she always wanted more. It had been 2.5 weeks when she finally asked to meet in person. I had ignored every message until then, deleted her voicemails without listening, and kept my distance from anything that might drag me back into her excuses. But when she sent an email, not a text, not a call, but an actual email with a subject line that just read, "Talk," I paused. The message itself was short and to the point, no dramatics, no emotion. She said she wanted to meet at the park near our old place, the one with the stone benches and the path that circled the pond. I replied once, told her I'd be there on Sunday at noon. She didn't respond again, and I didn't want her to. I got there 10 minutes early. She showed up right on time, wearing jeans and a sweater I recognized from last winter. Her hair was tied back, no makeup, no jewelry. She looked tired. Not broken, just worn down, like someone who had been trying to rehearse a speech in her head but knew it would fall apart the second she opened her mouth. She sat across from me without asking if it was okay. I didn't move. I just watched her. "I don't know where to start," she said, looking down at her hands. "You start wherever the truth begins," I said. She nodded, paused, then looked at me. I didn't think it would go this far. I thought I could end it before it became serious. "It was serious enough to document," I said. "So don't insult me by acting like it wasn't." "I know," she said quickly. "You're right. I'm not going to defend what I did." "Then what are you here for?" She took a breath. "I needed to talk to you without the silence. I needed to tell you that I know what I destroyed. I know I don't get to take it back or fix it. I'm not expecting forgiveness." "Good," I said, "because I don't have it." She nodded again. "I didn't leave because I was in love with him. I didn't fall for him the way I fell for you. I just stopped recognizing myself in our marriage. And instead of trying to fix it, I looked for something else. Something easy." "I was easy," I said. "I was the one who took care of everything, who never questioned where you were, who never asked for anything except honesty." "I know," she whispered. "And that's what makes it worse." "No, what makes it worse is that you didn't even flinch when I found out. You looked at me like I was the problem, like I was overreacting. That's the part that sticks." She didn't try to argue. I didn't know how to respond. I was ashamed and cornered and scared. Not scared of you, scared of what it meant to lose everything. "You should have been scared before you slept with someone else," I said. "You should have been scared when you lied to my face." I know, she repeated. And I wish I had been. We sat there for a while without speaking. The park was quiet. A few kids ran past us, laughing, while their parents watched from the benches nearby. She finally broke the silence again. I've been staying at Caroline's, but I can't stay there forever. I need to figure things out. Figure them out without me, I said. We're done. I'm not dragging this out for lawyers to turn into some long negotiation. You're getting what's fair, and that's it. I'm not going to fight you, she said. I've already lost. That's the only thing we agree on. I don't want us to hate each other, she said quietly. We had something real once. That version of us is gone, I said. I don't hate you. I just don't want anything to do with you. She blinked a few times, nodded, and stood up slowly. Can I ask one thing? I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. Do you think you'll ever be able to trust someone again? I looked at her. Not at her face, not at the tears she was trying to keep from showing. I looked at her the way you look at someone who used to be your entire world, but is now just a person sitting across from you with a past you can't undo. I'll trust someone when they earn it. Just like I did with you. She didn't try to hug me, didn't reach out. She just walked away slowly, hands in her pockets, head down. I watched her until she turned the corner. Then I stood up, walked the other way, and never looked back. The first Monday after that conversation, I woke up without an alarm. I didn't feel rested or anxious, just still. There wasn't a rush to check messages or think about who needed what from me. I got out of bed, walked to the kitchen, made coffee like I always did, and sat at the table, alone, not waiting for anyone to join me. There were no more small noises from another room, no perfume hanging in the air, no sound of heels crossing the floor. The house was silent, but not in a way that begged to be filled. It was just quiet, and that was enough. I had an email from my lawyer confirming that the initial filings had gone through. Mia had responded without dispute, didn't challenge anything, didn't ask for more than the minimum she was entitled to. It was a short message, just the facts, no emotions, and I appreciated that. I responded with a quick thank you and told him to move forward. That was the end of it. No drawn-out mediation, no late-night calls begging to try again. We didn't need to fix something that wasn't worth fixing. Over the next week, I started taking care of the small details people forget matter. I updated the emergency contacts on my work file, changed the beneficiary on my retirement account, removed her from my health insurance. It was mechanical, boring, and weirdly satisfying. These were things we had set up together without thinking twice. At the time, it felt permanent. Now it just felt like editing a profile on a website I didn't visit anymore. Friends started asking questions. The ones who didn't know yet were slowly catching on. A couple reached out after they noticed she wasn't around anymore. One guy, Dan, from my old job, texted saying, "You good? Haven't seen Mia in a while." I replied, "We split. It's final." He didn't press. The people who mattered knew not to. The ones who were just curious dropped it quickly. I didn't owe anyone details, and I wasn't going to hand them out like candy at a party. This was mine. I lived it. Let them wonder. A few days later, I went through the last box of her things. It was mostly random stuff, books she never finished, a pair of slippers she used to wear when it got cold, some hair clips I always stepped on and cursed at. I didn't feel anything touching them. No sadness. No nostalgia. I put them all in a donation bag and left them at a drop-off center without writing my name on the form. Whatever value they had was gone. They were objects. She had become that too. A person I used to know. The dog adjusted faster than I did. Max used to wait by the door in the evenings, ears perked, tail still. After a week, he stopped. He followed me around more, lay at my feet while I worked, and didn't look confused when it was just the two of us eating dinner anymore. He didn't miss her scent. Dogs understand more than they let on. They read energy, and mine had shifted completely. I was no longer holding on to the pieces. I had let them go. One night, I ran into Caroline at the grocery store. She didn't see me right away. She was comparing two types of pasta like it was a life-or-death decision. When she finally looked up and saw me, there was a pause. She smiled politely, then stepped closer. "Hey," she said. "Wasn't expecting to run into you." "Same," I replied. "How's Mia?" She blinked, surprised I even asked. "She moved out a few days ago. Got a place across town. I don't think she knows what she's doing yet." "Sounds about right. She talks about you. Not in a weird way. Just like she's still sorting through it. She can talk all she wants. Doesn't change anything." Caroline nodded. For what it's worth, I told her she should have been honest. "You didn't deserve that." "I know," I said. "But it's over now." She hesitated, then added, "You seem different." Calmer. I am. Eventually, you just stop waiting for something that's not coming back. We said our goodbyes. I grabbed what I came for and left. That was the last time I saw anyone connected to her. I didn't check her social media, didn't ask mutual friends for updates. I didn't care if she was happy or miserable. That part of my life was sealed shut, not because I hated her, but because I didn't need to understand her anymore. She had made her choice. I had made mine. What I took from all of it wasn't some grand lesson about love or betrayal. It wasn't a deeper understanding of human nature. It was simple. You can give someone everything, and they'll still look for something else if they never valued it in the first place. That's not on you. That's on them. And once you realize that, you stop trying to fix it. You just move on. I didn't burn the photos. I didn't throw away the wedding album. I put them all in a storage bin in the attic and forgot about them. Maybe one day I'll toss it. Maybe I won't. It doesn't matter. I don't need a dramatic ending. I have my peace. And peace, it turns out, is just waking up one day, looking around, and not feeling like someone else still has a piece of you in their pocket.